So the hits just keep on coming. Today, what I wanted to do was head over to RDS.ca, because we had an article published by Maxime Desroches from November 5th. Yeah, this is like 25 days old at this point. It is multiple weeks old, but some of the conversations that are contained within are still pretty relevant, I would say, when it comes to the Canadiens and how they are. So I'll leave a link in the description to this piece by Desroches. It is titled this, Defense Seeks Reinforcements. Here are some options for Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens. There are 5 names talked about as potential defensemen around the NHL that the Habs could target. Let's go out there and talk about each of them in this video commentary, because I guess the article is old enough that it makes a little bit of sense to just dive into everything that's there, and I don't feel bad just copy and pasting everything into a video. Plus, it was in French, so I had to translate it into English here. Starting out with the very first name the Montreal Canadiens could potentially target, it is Anaheim Ducks defender Cam Fowler. 32 years old, $6.5 million a year, and he is, it says here, as a restricted free agent after 25-26. No way is he a restricted free agent. He's 32 years old. It's a little kept secret that Fowler's agent and GM Pat Verbeek have been in close communication for months to identify a potential destination for the veteran of nearly 1,000 games. The article here talks about how the Ducks seem to be going with a few other guys and how the services of Cam Fowler are potentially going to interfere with the developments this season of guys like Tristan Luneau, Jackson Campbell, Olen Zellweger, Pavel Mintyukov, a lot of younger dudes in the Anaheim Ducks D-core that are supposed to be able to make damage in the next few years. And Cam Fowler's presence on this team, not necessarily seen as the most welcomed at this time anymore. Is that a slight against him? No, not really. He is a lot older than most of the other younger D-men that have been trying to break in. He is a lot more experienced. He is a veteran guy who has had a long tenured history with the Anaheim Ducks, so he's very well respected within the organization. But if he wants to go to a place where he can win one more time... No, right, he wasn't a part of that 07 squad. Never mind. If he wants to go to a place where he can get himself another chance at being back in Stanley Cup contention and maybe be given a bit more of a necessary role, like a place where he belongs, you could say, rather than what's being tossed his way in the Anaheim Duck system right now, then, look, I'm not saying that Montreal's going to help Cam Fowler win a Stanley Cup anytime soon, but he would maybe be a little bit more valuable in this organization compared to what he's got going on in Anaheim. Honestly, you could say that there are similarities between the way the Anaheim Ducks are running their D and how Montreal is right now. I just don't necessarily know if Cam Fowler is really somebody that would be helpful on either organization, realistically. Like, when you really twist my arm about it, I don't necessarily know if this is the right guy for Montreal, but of course, that is just one of the 5 names that's listed here. Let's go out there and talk about some of the other ones here. The second name that is listed is none other than Bowen Byram, 23 years old, out of the Buffalo Sabres. Let's read. $3.85 million a year. He is an RFA after 24-25. The initial reaction from the hockey world when the Sabres agreed to part ways with Mittelstadt to acquire Byram last spring was that it was a win-win trade. It's too early to draw any definitive conclusions, but let's just say the best evidence of this trade has been coming to Colorado so far, with Casey Mittelstadt well on his way to cementing his place as the Avalanche's number 2 center behind McKinnon. Now, this is funny, because the article then goes out there and asks what Byram's role is going to be with Buffalo. How does he fit in with Power, with Dahlin, with other guys there? Is there a necessary spot for Bowen Byram to fit in? And whether or not that's actually going to carry into the rest of the year, that's a question to be seen. But as we're seeing right now, because this article was written 3 weeks ago, Bowen Byram is now a number 1 defenseman in Buffalo. He's playing the right side alongside of Rasmus Dahlin on the top pairing. He's looking amazing in that process. He's getting tons of minutes. And this is ultimately a guy who definitely has taken away all doubt as to whether or not he actually is worth it to being on this Buffalo team with his play this season. So, if we're revisiting the conversation right now, I don't think the Buffalo Sabres would be interested in giving up a guy like Bowen Byram, especially to a team like Montreal, there wouldn't really be any benefit for him to be heading over to a team like this, considering everything that he wants is already in Buffalo. It's just going to depend on whether or not the Buffalo Sabres would be interested in getting anything that can help them in the now. But then again, Bowen Byram has been so good, and he's still so young, that there isn't really much to find in evidence that the Canadiens could get something to work here. I don't really see it happening. Furthermore, let's go out there and talk about some of the other ideas, because they're also written about here. Next up is Nemec, whom we have made a few videos about in regards to the Canadiens. 20 years old, he is Juraj Slafkovsky's best friend from the 2022 NHL Entry Draft. If the Buffalo Sabres are thinking that they better not blunder by giving up too quickly on the Byram issue, the same refrain, except to the 10th exponent, applies to Nemec with the New Jersey Devils. It's hard to ignore, however, that Nemec has been in lockdown since the return of Luke Hughes and Brett Pesce to the number 7 defense role, while New Jersey has a fully healthy blue line for the first time. Nemec, who played a key role as a rookie last year, has not played since October 22. Okay, now that actually has changed a little bit. Yeah, the article's pretty old, but Nemec is a guy whose position in New Jersey is kind of all over the place. He's actually in the AHL team right now, which is kind of unfortunate considering that he's only got 1 point in 7 AHL games this season with that Utica Comets squad. He has not been himself, and he has not, in any shape or form, had any production that is worthy of being a second overall guy from just a few years ago. There's a lot more to like out of Nemec than we have seen this year, and if he needs a change of scenery, if he needs to go somewhere new, what better destination than with his buddy Juraj Slafkovsky playing in Montreal? The question, of course, is whether or not the Habs would actually have the assets to make this kind of a deal work, and if the New Jersey Devils would be so eager to give up on a guy like Nemec this early on into his career. It would be a very short-sighted idea to say, yeah, this guy's a bust, he sucks, we're going to trade him away right now. But if the Canadiens make an offer that the Devils can't refuse, who knows where this can go? Furthermore, let's go over onto the final 2 names listed on this article. First, you have Damon Severson out of the Columbus Blue Jackets, 30 years old, $6.25 million AV guy, signed on till the end of 2031, so he's a long-term bet here. And then you also have yourselves Will Borgen out of the Seattle Kraken, $2.7 million guy, UFA after 24-25, 27 years old. These guys are a lot older than some of the other names we have discussed. Severson, I think, has been a little bit more of a... how do I say it? He's been kind of on and off the past few years, especially during his time with New Jersey, I feel. But he has been a right-handed defenseman who has generally regarded some pretty positive results in the NHL. Maybe not the most consistent, maybe not the most reliable at times, but he's still there and he's still all right. He certainly is better than a lot of the Canadiens defensemen, I'd say, exist on that team. But the question is, how much better is he than, let's say, a David Savard? Would he be so much better that it would warrant giving up a whole bunch of assets or something to make this work? Same could be said about Will Borgen, who is a guy in Seattle that I've liked a lot because he blocks a lot of shots, so he has helped me out in fantasy the past few years. But Borgen, he is a lot cheaper, also is a guy that is towards the end of that aging curve. Whether or not that's important to you, that's also going to matter. Whether or not you think the timeline of these guys and what they have to offer aligns with what the Canadiens are interested in building, and whether or not it would fully make sense for them to target any of these guys in a trade, especially with the idea that a guy like David Reinbacher could be coming back soon, that there are some other guys in Laval on defense that could be interesting to try out. Do you really want to go after a guy that is a little bit older, like a Will Borgen or a Damon Severson or even a Cam Fowler, like we talked about at the beginning of the video? I'd say the 2 guys that obviously I would like to see the most in Montreal are Byram and Nemec, and it's not difficult to understand why. They are so talented, they have such high potential ceilings, and heading into the long term, their windows of opportunities would really fit in with the Montreal Canadiens and what they're trying to build here. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this article on rds.org talking about 5 Montreal Canadiens defenseman targets that they could have heading into the next few weeks here? I get it, the article is a little bit old, some of the information might not actually be up to date, but I do like these ideas, and I do think it's still somewhat relevant to talk about the Canadiens and their blue line. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about these 5 names? Do you think any of these guys could help the Canadiens? Which ones do you think would do the most work, and which ones do you think would be the easiest to trade for? If you're a fan of any of these other teams that we talked about, Columbus for Severson, Seattle for Will Borgen, or anybody else, Anaheim, Cam Fowler, Buffalo, Bowen, Byram, or New Jersey for Nemec, let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about making a trade with the Canadiens? Is it possible? Is it not? Let me know in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.